What happens when you put a powerful do-gooder government official in one of the most important cities in California? It's next.
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top-secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
All while ferreting out the bottom line.
On all topics, controversial, bizarre, and taboo. Interviewing movers and shakers, agitators and muckrakers.
But that doesn't answer my question. That is all I'm answering.
With me, Gary Harrison, as your guide.
Harrison with you. This is the Carrie Harrison Show, live streaming up and down the west coast of California, east coast of the United States, as well as FM broadcasting here and there with a few affiliates in Canada and Europe. Hollywood, California, the media capital of Earth. What happens when you take a powerful government official, such as sitting next to me, Cynthia Blatt, and you put her in a very important city in California to fix the problems?
And I'm really here to solve them. We have problems with overdevelopment, which we have seen actually happening all over the city. And the purpose of so much development was initially to create more affordable housing.
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening. The way the laws in the state of California are written, what's happening is that we are losing affordable housing at an alarming rate. And people that are stably housed are being kicked out of their homes. And there really needs to be something done about this. So what happened with me is I started to get involved in my community a few years ago, looking at the kinds of problems that we were seeing with the overdevelopment, with too much traffic, so that our streets become gridlocked, so it becomes difficult for people to come to our wonderful city because there's no place to park and they can't get from one end of it to another, and it's 1.89 square miles.
And let me just point out, if you happen to live in West Hollywood, you know exactly what Cynthia Blatt is talking about. You cannot move a car. Now, you're saying, well, why not just take any of our sleek light rail systems through Los Angeles and bypass, because there isn't any. So it has become a car culture, and when you cannot get the car through a tiny city, the size of Key West, by the way, you're screwed. And then the rents skyrocket up to $3,000 for a one-bedroom box. This is West Hollywood. And so it's a real problem. And part of what you've done, Cynthia Blatt, over decades is you've been responsible, and I'm just going to read it verbatim, to protect the public trust, which means you've been the gatekeeper of not letting people steal public money. Gatekeeper at a very high political level in the federal government, and now you're going to bring that expertise to West Hollywood, and all this corruption and crazy out of control stuff, it hopefully gets handled and disciplined and it goes away.
And that is doable if we can change our city council. Right now we have two incumbents running for city council. 4 years ago, there was a huge proportion of the voting public that voted in term limits for the first time in the history of West Hollywood. But the way our system is set up, it tends to favor incumbents. So they only win by 30 or 40% of the vote.
Right.
So in order for us to make the changes that we need to make this work, we need to have a change on city council. Now, I have worked in the federal government for 24 years. And for the last 16 years, I've worked at the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. And what we do there is we create affordable housing. We create livable cities. We create urban development that makes sense. And that is not what's happened in West Hollywood.
Oh my God, this sounds like the slippery road to good living for people, which is all we ask for. That's all we ask for is if I put in $1, I get $1 worth of goods and services. And that's been your expertise as the gatekeeper to make sure that the money is not only spent right, but also you find ways to make sure it becomes spent right if they don't have the answer right then and there.
Well, you're absolutely right. How many times can we say right?
It's called research.
The point is that when you spend public money, it should serve a public benefit. And when you're talking about money spent by any kind of municipality, any kind of city or county or government entity, it needs to serve a public benefit. And that's the appropriate place for it. And we need to work in conjunction with the private sector, because without the private sector, we don't have the profit to make all of the things happen, all the retail and all of the things happen that we need. Right. So it needs to be a reasonable combination of both. And I know know how to put those together. I've worked in public-private partnerships. The government likes public-private partnerships.
It's in the Constitution, by the way.
Is it?
It's meant to be that way. In the Declaration of Independence, when we wrote this, two of my ancestors signed that document to King George III, and part of the argument was that he was restricting the opportunity for us to do trade. And so it's actually in the Constitution that part of the government function is to open up trade routes domestically and internationally. So that said, let's get back to traffic, because not only is it West Hollywood, California, where we happen to be, actually we're in Hollywood next door, we're Hollywood adjacent or West Hollywood adjacent, but you too, wherever you live, you've got traffic congestion. And if something big and important happens in California, the nation's sixth largest economy, by the way, in the world, the sixth, here, it happens here, it actually can move and become reality in other people's cities. So what Cynthia does with her national government position, if she can make inroads here, running for city council and achieving that position, so then can that happen in your town too? We've got traffic problems here. What's your vision for that? Because that's number one on everyone's list.
Yeah. What happens, the reason that we have such big traffic problems is because development and mobility go together. Traffic and building go together.
Yeah.
In the immediate, right now, in the immediate time, we need to do things like in West Hollywood, they keep the parking meters going till midnight. And as hard as we have tried to get those parking meters stopped at 6 p.m. so people can park their cars and go to our bars and our restaurants and nightclubs, the city council will not vote for that. We should have free parking in our municipal garages.
Hey, I'm a resident of West Hollywood. I think I'm already paying plenty. I deserve to be able to park in my own city and service my own restaurants. That's my opinion.
And what about you and your guests who come to visit?
Guests. That's right. I don't want to be a hermit. I want to have guests.
That's right. And what about our tourists? At the moment...
Tourism in California. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and West Hollywood is a tourist-based city.
Yeah, right.
And we have built so many hotels. Now, at the moment, I suggest we stop, and so does the city staff. They have suggested that building more hotels now will cannibalize the ones we have, and yet our city council is choosing to ignore the recommendation of their own staff, and we have at least 9 more hotels coming online.
So let's just jump into the incumbency, and everyone knows what an incumbent means to them in their city or their federal government. What's the upside for the current sitting people, many of which are notorious? You can Google them. They come up in the New York Times for egregious sexual behavior, hiring people off of sex apps and giving them almost $250,000, then being sued, almost $1 million. The taxpayers, the embarrassment, public humiliation. We could go on and on, but we don't have time. So what's the upside for a corrupt city council to do horrible things? What do they get out of it?
I'm not a crook, so I don't know.
And unlike Richard Nixon,
and I wear a cloth coat.
it's actually true. I mean, we've done assiduous research on you, which is why your voice was so important to put in front of the public today, because it really is a different voice, and you represent, having been the gatekeeper of a lot of money for the federal government, not a penny that anyone's found has been inappropriately spent, because this is actually who you are, and now you want to take that and put it in your own city of West Hollywood. So traffic gets better under you, parking, free parking, access to parking, and then we have the other things. There's rent stabilization here, where a lot of people who've been already established enjoy decent rents, but they're getting kicked out and evicted too.
Again, that has to do with California state laws that allows landlords to evict everyone from a rent-stabilized building if they take it off the market for 5 years. Then what happens is speculators, the California state density laws have unwittingly, this was not their purpose, it was a good idea, but they have become a speculator's paradise. I'm sorry if I already said that. But so what we can do is work with people, because we're not going to change the legislation. That won't happen. Right. So what we could do is we could use federal money combined with money from our city, which is not being spent in the most effective way possible. But we could use...
I believe they're building Parthenons for themselves.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, yeah.
And we don't have time for that either. We're actually down to the last couple of minutes. How do we follow you, Cynthia Blatt? What's the best way to look at who you are, understand you, and understand what you want to do for all of us?
Well, please contact me at my Facebook page, Cynthia Blatt for West Hollywood. I have a donation link. It's cynthiablatt.com, so you can help me out. You can contact the City of West Hollywood, and they will give. You can contact me at Cynthia for Cynthia Blatt. Cynthia at cynthiaforwesthollywood.com at my email address. Please email me. I would love to hear from you wherever you are. Cynthia at cynthiaforweho.com.
So you're saying you're actually, as a political candidate, making yourself available to the public.
Yeah.
This is pretty radical.
And
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my
and
pleasure.
Thank you for explaining everything that everyone has wanted for it, begged for, and asked for. You've said, oh, yes, on a silver platter. So let's just hope that this happens for you. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Carrie.
Harrison with you. We'll be back in a flash.